2017 was a controversial year for comics. Both DC and Marvel had controversial storylines for characters, bad writers for comics, and of course unhappy fans as a result of all this. Increasingly, shock appeal has been used by both publishing companies to drive up sales, anger longtime fans, and alienate potential new readers. Here are just some of what made 2017 so controversial and disturbing in terms of comic stories. Deadpool issue 21. In recent years, Deadpool has become sort of a lovable hero and someone that you can trust. But actually, when the character was first debuted, he was nothing more than a psychopathic killer. Though he still does things in his own unique way, it's well known that he deeply respects Captain America. However, when the Nazi Captain America commands Deadpool to kill S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Phil Coulson, fans and readers are left wondering why one character of such a status, especially with Marvel cinematic movies, kill another in that way. Though Coulson has been killed already, and this may not be a permanent death, it's still hard to understand. The Punisher, issue 218. Frank Castle is known for doing what it takes to deal out his own unique version of justice, and isn't afraid to do controversial things. However, when it was announced that he'd be wearing the War Machine armor that normally belongs to James Rhodes, who was killed in the equally controversial Civil War II, it seems to take things to a whole other level, and some fans were unhappy with the treatment of Rhodes' legacy and direction of the Punisher as a result of all this. Black Panther and the Crew, issues 1 through 6. Mostly to drive up anticipation for the Black Panther movie in 2018, Marvel allowed much more exposure and publicity for the character and related themes in 2017. However, that meant unwanted controversy when the Black Panther and the Crew dealt with topics that have been in the news often in America during 2017, such as police brutality against minorities and Black Lives Matter. The comic was essentially a rant on such things, and the said comic only lasted 6 issues before being cancelled by Marvel. Eddie Braganza. In the past few years leading up to 2017, DC Comics editor Eddie Braganza has been a controversial figure within the comic book industry because of his treatment and views towards women. Though DC took disciplinary actions towards him, things still continued. Soon fans and the public alike were wondering why someone who harassed women in the workplace be allowed to continue their employment at a company such as DC. When internet website BuzzFeed wrote an article about the topic, and even more potentially angry people could learn about the situation, he was finally fired from his position in November of 2017. Marvel Legacy. Variant covers. The concept of variant covers is nothing new and has been done for decades. However, since the early 2000s, DC and Marvel has often used the practice to try and increase sales for a smaller and smaller comic reading market. Readers would or could pay for the same comic just to have a different cover to increase value or give a false sense of rarity. However, controversy erupted when retailers refused to buy the variant books from Marvel. Marvel assumed that most retailers would buy the said covers in bulk and simply pass on the cost to the readers. But a good number of the comic shops and retailers refused. Reasons being that the cost was too high and readers actually buying in some cases as much as several variations of the same comic book. This whole thing looked and basically was a huge ripoff on possible readers and fans. James Robinson's run on Wonder Woman. 2017 was an excellent year for anything related to Wonder Woman, and the film being a crucial reason for that. Though Justice League was a box office failure, Gal Gadot's return as the iconic heroine gave even more positive exposure to the character. DC decided to put writer James Robinson onto the book to continue the success. However, apparently not, as the writer introduced a twin brother for Diana, which nearly everyone did not think was necessary and extremely unneeded. Added to that, DC was hoping that more girls and women would pay attention to the comic and become avid readers. But with women ignoring the comic industry due to an overwhelming male presence and a male creative team for the book, it was easily an event run that will be quickly forgotten. Doomsday Clock. When Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons created Watchmen for DC in 1986, it was a fantastic success at the time, and it is now considered the greatest comic graphic novel ever written and drawn. Even with the horrible movie adaptation, it was clear that DC wanted to take all that it could from the miniseries, and since the DC Universe's rebirth in 2016, Dr. Manhattan is a confirmed part of the DC Universe. Not only did this offend many comic readers, Watchmen was originally supposed to be just a miniseries and that was it. Doomsday Clock was revisiting the Watchmen universe in 2017, an attempt to update a number of things relating to it. Set a number of years after the original miniseries ended, it's had mixed receptions from fans and readers alike. Inhumans vs. X-Men. Though the event started a year before, it ended in 2017. And despite the serious claims that Marvel hoped it would make the Inhumans more popular and to take away from the X-Men due to Marvel Studios not having the film rights to the Uncanny X-Men, it didn't do much for either side. It was part of a broader scope by Marvel to replace the concept of the X-Men with the Inhumans, which in and of itself is a horrible thing. Action Comics issue 987. Readers were expecting for the identity of Mr. Oz to be Ozymandias from Watchmen, only to be disappointed that who he really was in fact Superman's father, Jor-El. Longtime Superman fans and even readers in general were taken aback by the concept of Jor-El's return when the whole meaning of his death was to save Kal-El, his son. Further, another scene in the comic had Superman saving undocumented migrants from being murdered. Some have mentioned that this scene was added in to give a political message for what was going on in 2017 internationally, when at the same time, Superman does that. Save people regardless of who they are or where they come from. Magneto's Hydra stance in Secret Empire. Secret Empire has been full of controversy and many dislike the event. But one of the aspects from it was that Magneto was sympathetic to Hydra and its intentions. Magneto is a Holocaust survivor, and for him to be, as some readers have said on the internet, a Nazi sympathizer, it erupted on social media. Too much diversity in 2017. Marvel Comics has taken steps to diversify its readership base by appealing to all manners of peoples, by reflecting it naturally in their comics. A wide range of characters and stories were done in 2017 to encourage this. However, Marvel often asks retailers and business executives about the status of the comics and what readers want to see and don't want to see, and this will be taken into consideration for future plans. Everyone loves a little diversity. It creates new stories and characters. But what Marvel heard is that low sales was also a constant theme of 2017. And the fact that some told Marvel it's turning some people off because still, it has been and most likely always will be a mostly white male readership and customer base for comics in general. And to an extent, they don't want the diversity in the comics. Akira Yoshida. In 2017, a number of comics from all the way back in 2004 and 2005 were remembered because of the author, C.B. Sublette, became the editor-in-chief for Marvel. What's shocking is that at the time, he was working at Marvel but unable to write comics. So he actually made up an imaginary persona of Akira Yoshida. This allowed him to write a number of Marvel comic books at the time. The controversy was that it was a Caucasian man pretending to be an Asian man, and was examples of racism due to the fact that he pretended to be a Japanese man, and a good number of the said stories dealt with Japanese culture. Northrop Gruman. When Marvel announced a partnership with the weapons manufacturer Northrop Gruman, it was something that many saw as a plot by Marvel to gain money with a war firm. Though the comic itself might have been harmless, readers noticed that both sides were willing to do anything as long as the money was right. Though more comics were planned, Marvel canceled the comics and none were technically released. It's unsettling to imagine that any sales from this partnership might have gone towards war or conflict anywhere in the world. X-Men Gold, Issue 1. After the event of the Inhumans vs. X-Men, and readers wanting the X-Men to return to the Marvel Universe in some way, Marvel responded with X-Men Gold and X-Men Blue, as the comic Gold became the center of attention in April. But what Marvel didn't expect is that the artist on the comic at the time, Ardian Syaf, to actually insert secret references into the artwork. He actually put multiple coded references to Indonesia's ongoing political, social, and religious conflicts of 2017 into the comics to no doubt put attention onto the plight of the Indonesians. The most alarming was a reference to a verse in the Quran that could be viewed as speaking badly against those of other beliefs or religions. Syaf was immediately fired from Marvel, but the whole concept screamed controversy. Secret Empire. It's been said that the most controversial event within comics of 2017 was the Secret Empire event from Marvel. Continuing the controversy from 2016, beloved Second World War veteran Steve Rogers was actually a Hydra event and sympathetic Nazi supporter. One of the worst facts is that the event had Cap as something that he's fought against for so many decades, and what is a core aspect of him to fight injustice and evil. Another fact is that Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, the writer and artist team that created the character of Captain America, both had Jewish heritage. Though public backlash was so high, events would later be reconned by many readers, and fans wondered alike if anything was sacred anymore at Marvel from such an event. These were just some of what made the headlines for comics in 2017.